Welcome to New Possibilities. I speak truth to power without fear. Today I'm going to do a review of two movies that I saw recently. A couple of days ago I saw Dark Girls, and today I saw Light Girls. I'm going to compare and contrast these movies and analyze them and just give you an overall sense about what I thought about both of the movies. First of all, both of these movies were excellent. They were well done. They included great interviews. Powerful statements were made during these interviews. And these documentaries provided a lot of crucial information about the whole problem of colorism in our community. And of the two, I really enjoyed Dark Girls the most. I thought that movie was truly sincere. It was about the real pain that African American women endure in this society, in particular, dark skinned women. You had painful stories about African American women and just the humiliation that they go through in this society. How dark skinned women are treated in a disrespectful manner, how they are subjected to discrimination within their own community. There were like poignant stories about different painful experiences that these dark skinned women had and that they encountered. And one thing that really stood out to me is a test that they conducted during the Dark Girls movie. And that was a test in which an African American girl was presented with images. The images included different images of a little girl, and the images provided a range of complexions, starting with white on the far left hand side, going all the way to a dark African American girl image at the very end. So you had all these images of girls of different shades. And they asked this little girl to pick the image that was beautiful, and the girl picked the white image. When they asked her to pick the image that was ugly, she picked the dark image. And she said that the dark image was ugly because it's black, and the light image was beautiful because it was white. And that was in 2013 when that test was conducted. And the sad story is this, that like years ago, in the 50s, during the Brown versus the Board of Education case, sociologists conducted a similar test where they presented African American children with black dolls and white dolls. And when the children received these dolls, they asked them the same type of questions. Which one is beautiful? Which one is ugly? And of course, they picked the white doll as being the most beautiful and the black doll as being ugly, even though the dark doll looked more like the child than the white doll. So these tests are like a prime example of self-hatred. And it's as a profound thing about this society when you have little children who are already programmed to hate themselves. And the fact that you have this passage of time from the 1950s until just a couple of years ago, you have this same mentality of self-hatred that continues to plague our community. Despite all this apparent progress that we've made as a society, self-hatred is still pervasive in the minds of our people. And I just thought that was powerful. I mean, it really was disturbing, that this mentality continues to exist. And they kind of touch on it, like about the media and the role that the media plays, but it is just mind blowing that a child is already taught to hate themselves at such a young age. And I understand where that hatred comes from, because if you look at the shows that children are taught to watch, the books that they are taught to read, they're taught to view white people as beautiful. Like when you think about the children's stories that kids read, like Snow White, Cinderella, Sleeping Beauty, all these Disney movies, the primary image of beauty that children see, in particular young girls see, is a white image of what it means to be beautiful. They're given white dolls to play with, white Barbies to comb their hair. So they look at these dolls and these television images and characters as the standard, as the golden standard of beauty. So when they look at themselves and they compare themselves to these images, they can't help but to hate themselves. And just the pain that was expressed in the Dark Girls movie was like really profound. These personal stories that they told about their experiences um, spoke volumes to me and really touched me. You know, it really made me feel their pain. You know, when you think about how African American men have been taught that the white woman is like the standard of beauty, and that if you can't have a white woman, you might as well get the next best thing, which is a light-skinned black woman. That's the sick mentality that we have as a people. That's how we have been programmed. When we watch these music videos, they always have the light-skinned woman up front. When we see our favorite athletes, they always have some white woman by their side, whether it's Tiger Woods, Michael Jordan, any other famous basketball player, athlete. 99.9% of them are with a white woman or a very fair black woman. So that makes, or some other woman of another race, another light complexion race. So when our young men see these images of, these great athletes and entertainers with these white women, it makes them think that that's something that they need to aspire to have as well. When they hear songs that talk about red bone this, light skinned girl that, they come to idolize these light women. And this is nothing new. This has been going on forever, and this is documented in those two movies, Dark Girls and Light Girls. They talk about the brown paper bag test that we imposed on ourselves. You couldn't be a part of churches or certain sororities if you didn't pass the brown paper bag test. See, we adopted the mentality of our oppressor. You know, we were oppressed for having dark skin, so what we did is we imposed our own system of oppression within our own community. A system whereby light skinned black people were looked upon as being the best black people, and darker skinned black people were looked upon as being the worst of the community. And that continues today. And that's one thing that I was really interested in um, finding out about, like the light skinned perspective. And that's one of the reasons why I watched Light Girls. Um, as I watched the show, I thought about some of the things that they were complaining about. And their complaints are legitimate. I mean, there are issues of colorism that affect both sides. You know, just as people make fun of dark skinned people, they also make fun of lighter skinned people. But I think that their problems, the problems of lighter skinned African American women, really can't even compare to the plight of dark skinned women. And one thing that I did not like about Light Girls is how it kind of like depicted dark skinned women as being bitter and mean and um, prone to engage in fights and all that kind of stuff. I didn't really like that presentation. You know, they didn't necessarily say that all black, dark skinned women behave this way, but it implied that the darker skinned women were haters and that they just wanted to fight all these light skinned women. And I just really wasn't feeling that part of the movie. And some of the things that they complained about, I just thought that they were really insignificant compared to like some of the things that darker skinned women face, the problems that darker skinned women face. As I said before, lighter skinned women are idolized in the black community. Um, so for these light skinned women to be complaining about stuff, um, I just wasn't feeling it as much as I did the other documentary because I know that these lighter skinned women are celebrated. They are idolized by the larger society and by our own community, our own people look upon lighter people as being better because they have that slave mentality. So yeah, I mean that's just what I thought about the Light Girls documentary. But I did think that they brought up some, very interesting points about the issue of colorism. And one of the stories that really stood out was the issue of albinos. There was one woman in there talking about her experiences as an albino, and how her brother basically wanted to disassociate himself from her and pretend like she wasn't even his sister. So I felt that I understood what she was saying, and I empathized with her, and that just the pain that she experienced was really powerful, and yeah, it was just something else. It's just a shame, that here we are all these years later, and we still suffer from this colorism. And part of me just wonders, will there ever be an end to it? Will we ever learn to love who we are? Will we ever learn to love and appreciate each other as a people? Um, and one point that they talk about is like the whole black consciousness movement. How at one point, for a brief period of time, there was a black is beautiful type movement. But eventually that collapsed under the pressure from the larger society. When you have television and just media in general constantly putting out this image that white is superior and black is inferior, constantly sending that message. Eventually, that undermined the whole black is beautiful movement. It really did because here, people no longer, there are some people that wear their hair natural, but they are the minority. There are some people that are proud to be black and that are, that love their people. But again, they are the minority. Many of us have been like programmed to just idolize white people and whiteness. We buy hair to, our women wear wigs and weaves and all that kind of stuff to emulate white women. And it's not solely the woman's fault, it's the man's fault as well, because that's what a lot of men view as attractive. So our women, in order to attract the men, they try to cling to those things which they think that men desire. And it's like all these years later, we still hate ourselves. I mean, even here on YouTube, you have people making fun of people's complexion. They call this one YouTuber Mr. Crispy. He's been called other things like Charcoal Boy and other kinds of insulting terms with respect to his complexion. And I'm sure that all his life he's probably heard like a lot of negative comments about his complexion. And that's probably part of the reason why this particular YouTuber uh, hates being black, really. He won't outright say that that's the case, but just his other statements have made it clear that he doesn't want to identify with black people, that he hates black people and black women in particular, especially dark women. So it's like people like him are the product of hatred. And, sadly, people express hatred towards him just based on the color of his skin. And that's just one of many examples. And then you have a few examples of people making fun of people because they're light skinned. But really, most of the insults are directed towards darker skinned African Americans. And that kind of reminds me of the whole scene in the movie Jungle Fever, where Wesley Snipes' character talks about his experiences as a dark skinned man growing up. And they talk about how the fact, in that movie, how this dark skinned man uh, married a light skinned woman and had an affair with a white woman. And basically, that was a result of his self hatred. So, anyway, those are just some of my thoughts about these two movies. I think that they're excellent, they're well done. The interviews were excellent and comprehensive. Uh, you can tell by the production of the two movies that Light Girls had a bigger budget because they were able to um, have more high profile uh, guests or personalities in that documentary as opposed to the Dark Girls documentary. But despite that, I still think that of the two, Dark Girls is probably the better of the two, just in terms of the quality, the pure quality of the documentary. But they're both good, and I recommend that you see them. If you want to watch Light Girls, I have included a link in the description box so you can watch it free of charge. And I recommend that you check it out and tell me what you think about these two films. I look forward to hearing your feedback. And if I haven't said so already, I just want to emphasize that I think that all black women, regardless of their complexion, are beautiful. We need to embrace our diversity as a people because, as they said in the documentary Light Girls, at the end of the day, we're all black people. We are all discriminated against. And for that reason, we should unite as a people and learn to love one another. Peace.